Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I am your host, Joey DeMeglio. And before I get started, I just want to say I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and wish you a Happy New Year. The Rangers are back in action this week with games against the Capitals, Panthers, and Lightning. Joining me today is Matthew Mugno, who covers the Rangers for the Hockey News. Thanks for joining me, Matt. How are you?
It's awesome to be on. Ice Cold Takes always see it popping up in my feed with the live show. So really excited to be on today, Joey. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Yeah, the live shows, I love them. StreamYard is great with that stuff. I don't advertise for StreamYard. Maybe I have to work out a deal with them at some point in the future. But I love how you could send it to different platforms. So like on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. It's great there. And now I think people can interact on there on Twitter. So you could like type in a comment like "Hey Joey" or something like that, and it'll show up. On Twitter, it
That's
never used
awesome.
to do that, which is really cool. But you've been covering the Rangers for how long now?
This is month three,
Oh,
month
month.
three now. So
Okay.
month 3 or 4, because the practices and preseason didn't start till mid to late September. So
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So you're really new to the beat then. So you're
fresh.
like Johnny Laz.
Yeah, Laz actually, like, essentially, I'd met him at a game. It was the first game I'd been to since like the lockdown. I met him by chance through someone I knew and just kept in touch. I covered NCAA hockey, Quinnipiac for Q30 TV, their station, and QBSN, their radio. Um, Obviously, Quinnipiac goes to the national championship, had the opportunity to follow them to Lake Placid, to Tampa, called that game, had that experience. I think it changes everything when you're able to see a winning team, which obviously we can get into, like New York look like that in 2022, where all their sports teams were
Yeah.
going full tilt, and last year was kind of a little bit of a step back. But with that, you cover a team like that. Johnny brought me on board. He needed some extra help. Obviously, New York market, it's huge, so you need a lot of coverage. You got to be on top of the game. And since then, everything's been great. I think it's been a good, not only learning experience to get the foot in the door, but the hockey news has been great.
That sounds exactly like something Johnny would do just from getting to know him, like juggling a
Hmm.
whole bunch of things like Action HQ, Blue Crew Pod, the Hockey News, and then
Hmm.
Matthew Mugno, throw him in there in the
Yeah.
equation if you're out there. um,
Yep.
yeah, so you said you covered Quinnipiac games. How long did you cover college hockey for?
So actually, so I was a film and TV guy, film heavy, and then what kind of switched up was I got into that. I got into it a little bit, dabbled freshman year of college, but with the lockdown, sent home in March next year. Pretty much, it's like you can call games on your computer. That
Yep.
didn't really entice me. Which, if anyone's listening and you're a young guy, or a kid and want to get into it, like definitely take the opportunity anyway. That was a stupid move by
Yeah.
me. So I got into it my junior year. That year they lost their regional to Michigan, the regional final. So they're one win away from the Frozen Four. And I think the odds of being at a 4-year school and seeing the team win, um, it's like the numbers are probably crazy. So as a senior, um, I beat report for the team. It's my first year doing that, first year calling play-by-play games, and um, that opportunity was awesome. But learned a lot. Learned a lot about the college hockey game. I didn't know about just hockey in general, juniors level, the Canadian system, just everything.
Mhm.
So it was an awesome experience up there. Smaller school wins the championship, and also had the chance to see a lot of high-end NHL prospects and talent that
Mhm.
are coming into the league now.
I gotta be honest. So like that was the first this past season, or what was it? The Frozen Four. That was the
Hmm.
first time I ever watched I sat and watched like a college hockey game.
Oh yeah.
The ending to one of those games was insane. I think it was Minnesota versus I can't remember who the other team was, but the one team tied it late and then they won it literally immediately in overtime. Like right
Yeah, that
off
was
the
the
tee.
national championship.
That was the national championship. That was and you called that, right? That was on your page, right?
Yeah, that kind of blew up. Bill Pito put it on the MSG
Yeah,
150.
that was
Like just
awesome.
picked it
I
up off
remember
of Twitter, which I didn't expect. It was just
that.
I'd covered the team. I was passionate about it, and yeah, Colin Graff tied the game late, and Jacob Quillen scored the
Yes.
overtime goal 10 seconds in. Now, interesting, they matched up Jackson Nelson and that line, which is now Minnesota's first line, up against Quinnipiac's first line, when they had Jimmy Snuggerud, Matthew
Yeah.
Nyes, who's up for the
Ooh,
Hobie, and
yep.
Logan Cooley, who's up for the Hobie on one line, and Brock Faber on the back
Yeah.
end. So not only that, the New York Rangers recently played the Ducks, who have Jackson Lacombe, who is on that team. There are a number of NHL prospects that played in that tournament. Seamus Casey is playing on the U.S. Juniors team this year. He's a Devils prospect. There were just name a player, they were probably in that Frozen Four. It's probably one of the more notable in terms of NHL prospects in a long time. Adam Fantilli, Michigan, now Columbus Blue Jackets. So yeah, just the experience watching those guys play. Alex Laferriere, rip-off Lafreniere. He played for Harvard, so he was in the same regional final as Quinnipiac. Mason Lowry was on Ohio State on their back end, who Quinnipiac defeated to get to the Frozen Four. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of names I could throw out there. But NCAA hockey is getting up there in terms of how they're producing guys in town.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, NCAA hockey and USA hockey is doing a really good thing right now. Like, I don't remember. I used to watch the World Junior Championships all the time as a kid. I never remember like the USA teams having like really, really good guys. Like, it was always Canada that would steal the show. They had the best guys. And now like USA has like a lot of talent. Gabe Perreault, for example, Rangers draft pick. He plays for Boston College. What have you been able to like watch him a lot? I know you cover the Rangers now for the hockey news, but Gabe Perreault, what have you been able to see from him?
Yeah, so Gabriel Perreault, he's one of those steals of the draft. I had everything college hockey. They are, I would say, the number one source for college hockey information outside of the NCAA. You know, they have a lot of accessibility with the NCAA and the PR teams and all those sites. Great, informative. But everything college hockey, they came on. They have a podcast, Pucks in Deep. They have access to those players that a lot of times even the media sources on campus don't always have that type of access. And I think the number one thing that stands out about Gabriel Perreault is he is such a playmaker. Listen, his skating might be a step behind right now, but he thinks the game so many steps ahead. It's something that, listen, I won't make this stretch and say Michael Jordan, but it's one of those things where they talk about seeing those X's and O's ahead. He's played with the same line mates in the development program, now at Boston College. Talk about recruiting to bring Boston College back into the fold. They bring a whole line from the development team that's now playing at the World Juniors together. Ryan Leonard, who went 9th overall. Gabriel Perreault, who slid to the Rangers. I mean, that was a player that I think even on draft day, I thought was a steal. But the more and more time's gone on, he's kind of proved it. His production, the creativity and the way he assists, he holds records for the development program right behind players like a Jack Hughes. So I do think that Gabriel Perreault is the real deal in terms of playmaking. And I don't think it'll be very long until we see him. Now he's a freshman. He has, certain parts of his game that he has to improve upon, but that's going to come day in and day out. It's going to take time to develop. And I actually had Patrick Williams on my podcast, Puck Talk CS, last night. Episode's out today. He talked about the AHL. Brennan Hoffman's one of those players. You got to learn how to shake those college habits, those junior habits from your game in order to become a professional hockey player. And Gabriel Perreault has the razzle and dazzle, so that those things will come with learning systems and learning how to step up into a more professional role.
So you would say just give him some more time. Like Hoffman keeps talking about, I have to shake those junior habits. I have to shake those junior habits. So I mean, it's good to see that you're bringing that up now. And
I had the chance actually to see Perreault, not to cut you off, not as an analyst, but I went to the for Quinnipiac's banner raising, went back October 7th just as a fan, which was fun. I didn't have that opportunity for a few years to just kind of enjoy a hockey game. And went up, they lost in overtime, but I had the chance to see Gabriel Perreault, and that was awesome to see him in person and really just be able to take in how he plays the game. Now, another source for this, for any listeners, Johnny works for NESN. NESN. He works for New England Sports Network. He covers games now on their broadcast, and he's had the chance to see him more than once. He's tweeted about him. He actually has a story on the Hockey News about Gabriel Perreault and has his connections with coaches, has great quotes from Peter Laviolette in there too, who's kept up with his development. So he's a player that all eyes on the organization are on him, and obviously fans should be excited about.
And his shot is really good too. I noticed like a couple of his highlights. He's got a really, really nice wrist shot. But like, what's something you said that his playmaking, is that something you've seen with Gabe Pro that we don't see on the highlights? I know he sets up his teammates a lot with great passes, but are there other, I'm sure there are other passes that he's made that he'll set up a teammate and the teammate will just miss the net or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to think with a guy like with a high motor like that is always going to be generating on offense. It's funny because not to switch the topic here, but Panarin and Lafreniere are one of the highest connections of duos for high quality scoring chances. And I think something that maybe this is my ice cold take here. Lafreniere is playing so well. I think he's a player that you're seeing, like I keep saying, his World Juniors mixtape is just like what we're seeing now. It's finally here, where you're seeing the way he played in those World Juniors and the major juniors. He's now playing like that at the NHL level. I think that if Alexis Lafreniere starts, I wouldn't say starts, but when he's hitting the back of the net more frequently, and maybe his, Trocheck, Panarin are finishing off some more opportunities, I think not only would they become one of the best lines in the NHL, but he'll become one of the top under 23 players in the NHL easily. I think right now nobody's really called him or labeled his game as cold because he's performing so well.
Yeah.
His points haven't showed up a lot in the last 10 games on the stat sheet, but I think if they do, he'll start reaching the levels that we're seeing of a Tim Stützle. And I don't think that's a question. You saw he was robbed by Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen last game. Like, if he scores one of that, there's a goal, right? Like, once you chip on those every game, night in and night out, you're going to start to produce. And I think he's right there. I think he can become one of the top young players in the NHL this season.
Yeah.
I mean, in the second half alone, I think if they start finishing more opportunities, that line can become one of the top lines in the NHL. Going back to our guy, Gabe Perreault. I think he's in the same category. Like, you got to think he was a freshman. It's his first year playing college hockey. It's a matter of time before he starts taking more of a responsibility and starts, taking those double shifts, more power play time, logging more minutes, and starts really, really putting up big numbers. And he's already one of the top point producers in the entire nation. So
he's doing. Perreault is progressing really well right now. Hopefully, he could do well in this the World Junior Championships. Maybe get a medal for USA. But that was a good transition to Lafreniere. I actually thought like a couple years ago when they first tried with Galant's first year,
one of the top
when they tried Kreider's advantage at Lafreniere, that was like Lafreniere's like call to the NHL. Like, that was his first, like, he belongs here, like, this is him. And then he kind of slowed down, and then we reverted back like a year or two later to, is this guy a bust or not? But he's playing really well. I've noticed he's very good forechecker, creates a lot of turnovers, neutral zone, behind the net, wherever on the ice. I agree with you. I think that's a good ice cold take. If you're following along at home, remember the ice cold take is an accurate statement backed by facts and observations. That is solid in nature, similar to a block of ice, i.e., spot on claim. That was a good one. That's a chilly one. I really like that one.
Chilly one.
Yeah, it got to stay on brand, But having someone like that on that line, Panarin and Lafreniere, I've talked about it a couple times on the show. Panarin hasn't had like a reliable right winger since Jesper Fast, really. Like, all the guys that he's had have not like stuck there. It's been a revolving door, as is that top line right wing for Kreider's advantage at since Buchnevich left. What do you see? So from that line, do you think with the high quality they give up, do you think it's fine that they give up a lot of high danger chances going the other way? Because sometimes it's like high risk, high reward. Do you think that's something the Rangers could work around?
Yeah, and I think it's something that'll shore up. I think they're learning. Now we're in the first quarter. We're beyond the first quarter. We're really approaching that halfway point, and I think it's something that it takes time to develop those habits. You're still not necessarily learning line mates now. You're still learning tendencies, and I think they've stretched the ice. They've shown that they're great off the rush, and part of that is learning. Panarin said the other night with forecheck, back check, throw check. Like you're going to learn how to back check. Not necessarily learn. This is aspects of the game that are always present. But I think it's becoming more responsible in that regard because I think they've harnessed that power that they have going north. And sometimes when it's coming south, like you're saying, it's cutting down on those opportunities and making sure you're shoring things up defensively, coming the other way. But I think something that's helped Lafreniere improve and helped Panarin become more comfortable on that line, having a reliable opposite winger, is that Lafreniere is carrying through the neutral zone. That allows Panarin to open up and open himself up to put himself in a position to either create more offense by finding one of his line mates or to take the shot opportunity. And that's why his shot totals are going up this season. It's because Lafreniere has the capability of carrying the puck. Not that Ryan Strome, Andrew Kopp, Colin Blackwell, not that they didn't have that capability, but they didn't have the talent that Alexis Lafreniere has. And, he's harnessed that potential. We're seeing him take the puck through the neutral zone and carry. That allows Panarin to open up. And that's been something that both players have stated has improved their game. So that I think was the key to their success on that line.
That's a good point. I always used to see like Kako, Lafreniere, those younger guys under like David Quinn and Glant, like they had that skill to carry it over the blue line, but they would just dump it in. And I think they kind of gotten rid of that out of their games, or at least Lafreniere has. We really haven't seen it with Kako since he's been injured, but Lafreniere doing that, I like that. That's it's a big help for that line. And now in terms of defense that you were talking about, what were the Rangers working on in practice this morning? Were they working on that like the neutral zone trap because they gave up a lot of high danger chances to sit to the Sabres on that last game before the break?
You know what? I think the trap, I'm still kind of figuring where it's deployed by just observing the game because obviously, nobody's going to show that their hand on that.
Yeah.
But, you saw it. They deployed that against Edmonton a few times, just that setup, but it's been less frequent than the beginning of the season. Honestly, with the way the team's rolling right now, the practice is like a morning skate today is line rushes, power play, penalty kill, and just getting back into the groove. In terms of the hardworking practices, that's going to be, I think that'll come more so after the team travels around New Year's, because you're coming off the break, you have a game home, and then they might practice tomorrow morning before they travel. If not, they're traveling on the road, and then they got a back-to-back in Florida. So
Another back-to-back, yeah.
yeah, the back-to-back sets of I think the team's faced adversity with that, and they've overcome it with how they've responded to those back-to-back sets for sure.
Yeah, it's tough schedule. I forget who it was the other night that had the Rangers played. It was like the Rangers have like 7 back-to-backs or something like that, and the other team only had like 1 or 2. It was like their third or something like that. So, the Rangers are getting them all out of the way now. I haven't checked like the schedule for the rest of the season, like how many back-to-backs they'll have close out the 23-24 season. But I mean, I would think that most of them are out of the way, so now the schedule might lighten up a bit for them.
Yeah, and part of it too is that they're tied for the least home games in the first half of the year. So that's another aspect of it. That's going to help them out because the second half of the season involves a lot of divisional games, a lot. And not only divisional, but even in the conference. And those are teams that if you stay in first, you'll play a wild card. So, and I don't think this year is a year to take the wild card lightly. Tampa Bay looks good. The
Carolina's
Devils
not
are
even in it.
Yeah, like these are teams that I think any team can turn it around. We know the power of the Eastern Conference. It's definitely the paradigm shift from the Western Conference to Eastern Conference from the mid 2010s, I would say. mid to late 2010s, and now I think it's something that will benefit the Rangers, right? Like, you got to think you're at home. It changes everything when you don't have to be on the road, and I think that's part of why that Canadian trip was so successful, the trip out west,
Yeah,
because
the
you got those
5-0.
games out of the way, right? Like, you got a few games out of the way that are big in the first half of the year. Get some back-to-backs out of the way, and you're 1-0 following a loss. I mean, I don't think it gets much better than that. And
Yeah.
obviously, there's going to be road bumps along the way, right, Joey?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's having that 5-0 road trip in the Western Canadian road trip. That's something to hang your hat on for sure. And then
Mm-hmm.
going down, like you could rely on that going forward. You just have to win those divisional games. I think. I think
Mm-hmm.
those are imperative because you have Carolina that you know they're a playoff team, but they're outside of the playoffs, and you said we're going into the halfway point of the season. This is not like we're no longer in that stage where it's like it's too early. It's too early. Like Philadelphia is still playing really well right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something you have to keep an eye on. So it's important to win these games. So for the last 3 games of 2023, Rangers are playing the Capitals tonight on Wednesday, and then they have the back-to-back against the Panthers and the Lightning. What do you think the Rangers need to do to rattle off 3 more W's? This is the last question I have for you.
Yeah, actually, I think Washington is going to be the biggest wild card to me tonight.
Tonight.
Not that it's not that the team's coming off the break and they're ready. It's more of with Washington, how hungry are they? They need these wins. They got to stay in pace because I think they're a team that's like their build and how kind of things are shaking out isn't the same as the Flyers, but they're in the same position. They've kind of overachieved, I would
Yeah,
say, at least by the outsider's point of view. Like, of course, you're in that locker room, you believe. But from
yeah,
the
of
outsider's
course.
point of view, overachieved a little bit for what's on paper, and they need to win anything they can. So I think they're going to be hungry. But I do think, you know, against Tampa, that'll be a tough game. They're playing a lot more physical this season. They actually have, I believe, 3 players in the top 10 in hits in the NHL. And then, that's been their brand. That's where a player like Barclay Goodrow came from. That style of hockey. They brought up players like a Mikey Isamont that has a hard nose
Yeah,
and a hard checking mentality. And I think the other team that you can't sleep on is Florida. I think they were a team that coming into this season, everybody, I wouldn't say wrote off, but I don't think they have taken, I guess for lack of better words, taken very seriously. 2 years ago, they won the President's Trophy. Last season, they go to the Stanley Cup final with a different roster. Now, Matthew Tkachuk came out with a quote last week and said, they're changing the culture down there. And you're seeing that. They're in contention now. They're a team that you can't sleep on, and the Rangers are playing them coming off of a back-to-back. So I think that'll be important, going into Sunrise and not taking that game lightly either. So
yeah,
it's going to be, 3 pretty big games this week. And, I think for the Rangers, it's more about sticking to their game. If you lose one of those games, you drop a game or two on this. It's more about where you're playing your game. How are the chances looking? Limiting chances off the rush. That was a problem for a little bit, especially with how well the goaltending has been and goalkeeping. I think you want to, ensure that you don't lose the way they have a few times this season against Nashville. When they were in Nashville and
yeah,
won, like, you don't just want to squeak out with the win. I think sometimes taking the moral victory sometimes will help the team in the longer run than squeaking out a victory that
yeah. Yeah,
just
I
just
agree.
doesn't sit well. So
Yeah. And I think the Rangers also have to have that in the back of their minds, like how they played against Washington the last time. It really wasn't. I mean, they didn't give up that many high danger chances. Like it was on natural stature, it was like 5 to Washington, but
mhm.
they were making mistakes all over the ice. They were turning the puck over. They weren't covering their guys. Like the defensive coverage was lacking. They got to remember that effort that they put in and come back with like a much better effort, especially at home
Mhm.
now. Like they were on the road for that game and they almost got shut out in that game. So I'm looking for the Rangers to have a little extra pep in their step. especially in front of the MSG, the fans, uh, after Christmas. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I know like they eased into practice this morning, so we'll have to wait and see about that. But I mean, that's a good assessment about the Panthers for sure. Because you know how Boston, like what happened in the playoffs, Boston, I don't know, they took their foot off the gas or whatnot, and they gave the Panthers an inch, and the Panthers took a mile. They
Hmm.
eventually made it to the finals.
Yeah, that's a perfect assessment, I would say, of a team like that. Anything can happen in the playoffs, and that's a ways away.
Yeah,
But yeah, exactly. Like you give a team an inch, especially in the way the league is right now, they're taking the mile. Every team has the talent, and a lot of teams in the East have a hard work ethic.
yeah,
So that's something, the next 3 games, it's going to be prevalent as ever. And the Rangers they're in the mix though.
yeah,
Obviously, they're one of the best teams in the league. I think part of that, part of the conversation though, is that you know, they seem to have another level to go to, and I
yeah,
think that's where it's exciting. It's exciting to see that. I think
yeah,
a lot of the players specifically, they're without Kako, they're without Heedle. Miller was out for a few games, and I think his game has another level that he can reach. We talked about it today with Laviolette. So I do think a lot of the players individually and as a team collectively, there's another, level. And
mhm,
I think that's leaving fans where I don't think they realize
yeah.
not only how good this team is, but how good this team can be.
Can be. Yeah, the potential. Like we see they're playing well right now. They're rattling off wins. They're resilient. Trocheck's playing well. Panarin's playing really great. Lafreniere could get some points. Zibanejad could be
Hmm.
better at 5v5. Kreider could be better at 5v5. You know what I mean? Shesterkin could step it up. Fox could be better. Lindgren could be better. Like these are things that we could see. Like we saw how the defense played in that first month of the season and how great they were. Like that has been lacking a little bit since then. So the Rangers could keep how they're playing offensively and just step it up defensively. Like that's the next step in their game, I think.
Hmm. No, 100%.
Yeah.
Again, like they talk about limited chance off the rush, shoring things up in that respect. I think from the outsider's perspective too, goals in bunches were a problem against Edmonton. I think that's been something that's popped up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those things, they'll make those adjustments, and they're really keen on their video here. So I think they're gonna watch those things closely, and it's something that they're actively working on.
I'm glad you pointed out the goals and bunches thing. The last thing I'll say before we wrap it up, like the goals and bunches thing, I noticed it far too often this season. Like the Rangers will give up one goal and then like 30 seconds later or a minute later, they give up another one. And then like
Hmm.
sometimes even after that, like another 45 seconds to a minute, they give up a third goal. Like I haven't gone back and looked at how many times they've done that, but it seems pretty frequent that they've done that this season. I'll have to go back and check that out. But yeah.
Hmm.
Anyways, Matthew, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for doing this with me. I know the schedule is a bit of rough and stuff like how the beats are. I understand how it is. I'm in school for journalism. Like I get it.
Hmm.
I get it. So
Awesome, man.
really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me on. Love to be on. Love to have a nice cold take.
I love it. Yeah, you got to stay on brand. We'll get you on in another episode for sure.
Oh, for sure. Second half of the year is going to be intense, man.
Yep. All right. Ice Cold Takes fans, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.